All right, everybody, we are live on a simulcast. And if you're tuning in or when you tune in, just let me know if you're watching this live and put your name in there, say hi, whatever. And this is going to be Coach's Corner, just short, hopefully high impact content on things that pertain to health and longevity, and simulcasting this on multiple platforms. So hopefully you get the chance to see it. But just real quick, I just got out of the cold plunge, and that's a topic for a different discussion, which I've done in the past, and I'll do it again. But I do want to point out something cool that we're going to talk about. And no, I'm not taking my clothes off, but that's my Dexcom G7 continuous glucose monitor, or CGM. Now, what's really cool, we're talking about metabolic health today. I'm going to go over that real quick, but just want to give some people the opportunity to jump on here and just let me know. Put in the comments your name, and that way I can see it in the comments, and we go from there. But let's talk about what we're going to go over today. And the topic is how not to die young. I assume all of us, including myself, I think it's fair to say that we have a strong desire to live our longest and best life. But what we're going to go over today is basically metabolic health, how you measure it, how you manage it, what it is. I'm going to tell you that first off, and the 5 labs everyone should be getting on a regular basis. This is how you can measure and monitor your metabolic health, even if your doctor isn't up to speed. Unfortunately, that is many at the moment, but getting better. And then 5 big ways, that the big 5 ways you can improve metabolic health. So that's kind of the goal for today. And what we're going to go over, I actually have some resources I'll talk about, which are listed there. And then also in the descriptions on all the platforms. And then let's get with it. So today we're talking about metabolic health. I just showed you my CGM. If you're just tuning in, I'm going to talk about what that is. And we're living in a day and age where these can be our biggest sources of stress and distraction, or they can be assets, allies, and because of the tools that we have access to today. And that's why I just showed you a CGM. So literally right now, I can show you my blood sugar is 97 real time. And that massive dip right there, that was when I got in the cold plunge. So I don't know if that was a sensor malfunction and didn't like the 45-degree water, or if legitimately my blood sugar was going down in response to that hormetic stress and cold shock of getting in a cold plunge. But the point of it is to show you one way with these devices and what's available to us that we can track and measure metabolic health. And that includes 5 labs that you can literally get for $99 out of pocket, or convince your doctor to get them for you. So I'm going to tell you what those are, and also some of the clinical markers for metabolic health. So what is metabolic health and the opposite, metabolic dysfunction? Well, first off, 88%, according to multiple studies of the human species, particularly in America, and this study was in America, 88% of us have some degree of metabolic dysfunction, meaning we are not completely metabolically healthy or metabolically functional. So metabolic health is how well we generate and process energy. Every cell in our body has to have energy to function and access to it and able to use that energy. And there's 3 sources of energy that run our bodies, our minds, and all the processes that keep us alive and allowing us to move, think, talk, breathe, and circulate blood, digest food, all those things. And those 3 sources of energy are glucose, fats or fatty acids, free fatty acids, and then ATP. So our ability to use those 3 energy sources independently and collectively is what we would call metabolic health. So when you are metabolically dysfunctional, we start losing the ability to use fatty acids primarily as a fuel source, and we become glucose dependent. And you may have heard of insulin resistance, ultimately becoming type 2 diabetes. That is one of the major epidemics, along with Alzheimer's, that is happening in America and actually worldwide. So it's not just the people that have been diagnosed, but with diabetes, it's 80 plus million people are estimated to have pre-diabetes right now, and whether you know it or not. And then there's 41 million Americans that are estimated to be pre-Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is largely considered the scariest disease to have to deal with as the person with it or as the family member of someone that has it, so as the caretaker. So metabolic function, in summary, is linked to almost every single chronic disease. It's the source, the root cause. So the point of that, of learning about metabolic function, is if you can fix metabolic function or become metabolically healthy, metabolically functional, you know you're reducing the likelihood of all-cause mortality or the likelihood of getting almost all chronic diseases. So your ball is in our court. We have control, and I'm massively a champion of taking ownership for what we have control over. And metabolic health is something we have control over. 80, only 15% of diseases are considered due to genetic causes, and 85% are due to lifestyle choices. So the ball, like I said, is in our court. We get to choose what we do with that ball, whether we just ignore it or we hit it back, take aggressive action, and take ownership for our health. So let's talk about the ways that we can measure and manage metabolic health. So to determine whether you're metabolically healthy or not, the 5 clinical markers that are generally accepted as metabolic health indicators are blood sugar levels, or the ability to control those blood sugar levels, triglycerides, your LDL HDL ratio, your blood pressure, and your waist circumference. So those are the kind of generally accepted clinical markers. But what we all can do and do right now, and do it either through your insurance or very cost effectively out of pocket. Like I said, one company that I work with that I'll talk about briefly is Levels Health. And when you are working with them or you're a subscriber with Levels, whether you're getting a CGM or not, you can get these 5 labs for $99 out of pocket at your local LabCorp. Get those results and then understand where you're at. So these are the 5 labs that everybody should routinely get. If you've never gotten them, you should start immediately, get them, and then every quarter or every 6 months, you should be staying on top of these things. And what are those labs? First is ApoB and triglycerides. Those are kind of your measures of cardiovascular health, which again is linked to metabolic function. So don't get confused. These 5, let me go over them real quick. ApoB, triglycerides, fasting insulin, uric acid, and your A1C or HbA1c score. So those are the 5. Let me break it down real quick into subcategories. The ApoB and triglycerides. The ApoB is the lipid-carrying protein marker that is now considered to be the best lab measure of cardiovascular risk. Old school is cholesterol, your LDL and your VLDL. New school is ApoB. And ideally, you want that around 50 or definitely under 75. So understanding what that number is, there are many ways through diet, lifestyle, and yes, pharmacology to manage ApoB and get it under 50. that is your insurance that if you get it under 50, you, depending on what your age is and how much damage you've already done, but you can stop heart disease where it's at and prevent it from progressing by managing your ApoB under 50. And that could be, like I said, through diet and lifestyle choices, and not just with statins. And everybody thinks statins are, the devil, but the reality is they have 5 different pharmacological options now that when working together, you get to take less statins. And that's not something I'm going to get into. I'll do that on a separate episode, but just understand, get your ApoB. If it's over 75, that's something you want to be aware of, and you need to start working on aggressively to focus on cardiovascular disease. Triglycerides, in those, the good news with triglycerides, you can quickly get those where they're consistently under 100. The lower, the better, and it is very situational. So when you get your blood labs, you want to make sure it's 12 hours fasted minimum to make sure that triglyceride number and your blood sugar number is going to be accurate. So those are your cardiovascular risk factors related to metabolic function. And then fasting insulin. If you, like most people and most doctors, go and get your standard metabolic panel and you're going for your annual physical, your doctor's going to order most likely fasting blood sugar. The problem with that, and if you get a CGM and monitor the results, you could have a fasting blood sugar that doesn't really reflect how your body is using glucose. So it's very transient. You could have a moment of irritation on your way to get your blood drawn. You could be in a rush. You could have been stressed. You could have slept really poorly. All of those are going to affect that very transient blood sugar reading, and it's not a very useful tool. And that's why the A1C, we'll talk about in a second, is more useful. But a fasting insulin is going to be more consistently revealing of metabolic function. That's how much insulin your body is pushing out in a fasted state. If that number is high, above 15, your body's making a lot of insulin to keep your blood sugar levels lower. So we want to manage that number down to 5 or less. So that's important to get for metabolic function and insulin resistance. Uric acid. This is one that I'm seeing on more labs now, but ultimately you would never see it unless somebody had gout. Uric acid would be elevated for people suffering from gout, but uric acid is also now an accepted and accurate marker for metabolic function. So getting that and understanding what it is important for understanding your metabolic health. And finally, your HbA1c, or most people just say A1C. So what the A1C is kind of a trailing indicator of your average blood sugar levels. And I'm not going to get into how it's determined, but just understand that it's a good reflection of what your blood sugar has been on average for the past 3 months. So it's not something that you're going to fix overnight, but something you want to measure every 2 to 3 months until you get that number into the low 5s or generally in the high 4s. Anything 5.7 to 6.6 is pre-diabetes. 6.7 and up is considered type 2 diabetes. So understanding those 5 is how you can measure and hopefully manage your metabolic function. So these, again, are things we have control over. You can take ownership of your health. Remember, you are the patient. You are the client. You can find, if your doctor's not willing to do it, you can absolutely find somebody to do it. Like I said, with Levels, you can do it for $99. And one of the things I'm working on right now is creating a relationship with Levels Health. I'm now an investor in them, an early stage investor, and I'm also a customer. I use the CGM, and now they have the G7s, which are continuous read glucose monitors, meaning I don't have to do anything with my phone. As long as my Bluetooth is on, it's feeding the data to the app, and both the Levels app and the G7 app. and it's just recording my glucose numbers all the time. And that is an awesome tool. You don't have to be a diabetic now to get it. So that's exciting news. I track my sleep. I track my workouts with a heart rate monitoring system called MyZone. And you can track all kinds of things now, but you don't want to get lost in the tracking if you're not going to do anything about it. So recently I had a client that spent over $5,000 a few months ago to get all of these amazing labs and tests done and got the feedback of what they needed to do, but they never took action on it. So taking action is what is most important. So that's that cliche, oh, knowledge is power. I always raise my hand, stomp my feet, and say, no, there's a caveat to that. Applied knowledge is power. You have to apply it for knowledge to be useful. So that's my caveat there. And just by the way, muscle does not weigh more than fat. You hear that all the time. Oh, muscle weighs more than fat. No, a pound of muscle weighs the same as a pound of fat. They both weigh 1 pound. The caveat to that I also throw in, and I don't know why I got on this tangent, but it just popped in my head. A pound of muscle is denser or smaller or takes up more space or less space or less volume than a pound of fat. So when we do transformations here at Triumph, somebody could not lose a pound on the scale, but they could absolutely get smaller. If they're building muscle and losing fat simultaneously, which happens with 92% of my clients now, it used to be 83, but I keep getting better. For the clients I work with directly, 91% in their first 6 months don't necessarily, most of them do lose weight on the scale, but it's a larger percentage of that is losing fat and while also gaining muscle. So, but I do have clients that do it at the same rate, usually males and or former athletes or somebody that's formally done some kind of strength training. So as they're gaining that muscle back at the same rate they're losing the fat, the weight on the scale doesn't change. But I digress. But that is a good segue into how to improve your metabolic health. This is probably the most important thing. If you're just tuning in or you're tuning in later, I want you to put in the comments or whatever platform you're on, just if you are willing to commit to doing any of these steps, just say, I commit, put that in the comments. You can pick any or all of them, but if you try to shotgun approach, I know that's not going to work from 25 plus years experience as a professional health coach and trainer. So focusing on one or two things at a time. And then the book Habit Stacking by Atomic Habits, by James Clear, talks about habit stacking. So get one or two things established and then stack on an additional habit. But let's talk about the big 5 things that everybody can do. And some of these are things you can do for free. Most of them don't cost anything, or you're just redirecting money you're already spending. Number one, and I'm going to show you some resources, and they're mentioned in the comments. They're mentioned on the screen there. But if you read only one book for your health, this is it. Peter Attia, I've considered him a mentor. I've listened to over probably 2,500 hours of his. They're pretty deep dive, very scientific, very high level, but I like to extract the actionable items out of that. But this book is amazing. He talks about the 4 horsemen of death, but he's the first doctor that I've heard go on record and in his book and on his podcast and agree with me in my book that you see over my shoulder there, Magic Pill, that exercise is the magic pill. But exercise is the number one lever that we have in our toolbox to manage metabolic health, improve metabolic health, improve functional health span, improve quality of life, cognitive function, pain reduction, blood pressure, on and on and on. But exercise, and there's two forms of exercise that you want to primarily be concerned with: cardiovascular, or zone 2 more technically. Heart rate monitored 180 minus your age is approximately the heart rate zone that you want to target for zone 2. So this is slow, low intensity, steady state where you can have a conversation, but you still got to catch your breath a little bit. And that's stuff like cycling, walking. I've been doing rucking. I can't get my heart rate to zone 2 just walking. So carrying a 30-pound pack does the job for me right now. And so zone 2 is a little bit more on the timing. It's the base of the pyramid. It's the foundation of cardiovascular fitness. So that's big item number 1. And that improves your VO2 max, your ability to use carbohydrates or glucose for fuel, mitochondrial health, on and on and on. And number 2, and equally important, they're both important, that's the takeaway, is strength training. So I have been preaching this for a long time, but finally in 2017, and now the word is finally getting out on how critically important strength training is for not just building and maintaining muscle, which improves insulin sensitivity and glucose utilization to manage your metabolic health, but it also stabilizes your joints, keeps you and protects your bone mineral density for your bone health, and they're linking it to brain health as well, cognitive function. So lots of reasons to do strength training, but the more muscle you have, it's like muscle is your glucose sponge. It makes your nutrition more forgiving. So the incentive of building muscle, besides long-term functional health, joints, stable joints, balance, stability, mobility, flexibility, and reducing the likelihood of falls, which is like now epidemically increasingly the largest cause of death, or outside of heart disease, stroke, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes. Falls over the age of 65, if you fall and break a femur, your thigh bone, or your hip, 33% of those people will die within 1 year of breaking their hip over the age of 65, male or female. And then another 50% will never, ever, ever achieve the quality of life they had before that injury. And there's another handful that break, I think it's like another 30 plus percent after the 33 that die in the first year, another 30 plus percent die within 3 years. So it's a sentence that none of us want to suffer from. So strength training is insurance of preserving bone mineral density and decreasing the likelihood you're going to fall in the first place. So that's number 1. And then obviously is something I'm passionate about as a trainer, health coach, and what we do at Triumph Fitness and Nutrition in Largo, Florida. Number 2, it's 2A, 2B. I call these the S Sisters of Death because they're kind of the silent thing that most people know about, but rarely do something about. And that's the 2 S's: sleep and stress management. So sleep, starting with that, it's finally getting a lot more attention, and less people are saying you'll get all the sleep you need when you're dead. People that sleep are lazy, or poor fun, are just wasting their time sleeping. No, smart people are now preaching against that, because poor sleep, one night of bad sleep can ruin your day. But literally, the effect of 1 hour less sleep, if you go in the spring, when we move our clocks forward, daylight savings in the spring, when we lose an hour of sleep, that Monday after that weekend shift where most people are getting one less hour sleep, number 1 highest day or highest increase of heart attacks, like 30% higher heart attacks on Monday, and more traffic accidents. It's 25% higher traffic accidents. And then on daylight savings, when we get an extra hour of sleep, it's the opposite: lower heart attacks and less accidents. So that's just the impact of 1 hour. But poor sleep is associated with blood pressure, which I mentioned was a clinical marker of metabolic health, meaning poor blood pressure management, it's going to go up. And if you're chronically not getting enough sleep, your blood pressure is going to be 10 to 15 points higher than it would be otherwise. Poor glucose utilization, just one poor night of sleep, and why I'm wearing a CGM, why I track my sleep. You're going to have one from a bad night of sleep. The next day, you're not going to manage your blood sugar. It's going to be 10 to 15 points higher than it would be otherwise. So that's another reason, and that could link to that higher A1C score. And your body's going to make more insulin, and it's just going to move you towards insulin resistance faster if you are chronically getting not enough sleep. It's also going to lead to cortisol imbalance and dysregulation. And when cortisol is out of whack, bad things happen. That's all I'm just going to say on that. And then the other thing that's equally important and also getting more attention is managing our stress and mental health. And it's not stigmatized like it used to as far as mental health goes. And then managing our stress. People are understanding the importance of that and getting help sooner. But if you're one of those people that you're under a lot of stress and you're just burying it inside, that is going to take years off your life, and it's going to lead you to be more likely to be metabolically dysfunctional. So those are the two S esters, sleep and stress management, that I call 2A and 2B, or you could call it 1, 2, 3. But in my system, it's 2A, 2B. And number 3 is nutrition. Most people like to focus on nutrition first. And now, with the semaglutides or tirzepatide shots, people are just using that as a crutch. But I'm going to tell you, yes, they will be effective at weight loss. And all the studies confirm that. 28-week studies, there have been several. But they also confirmed that 35% of that weight loss is muscle. So you're losing metabolically active tissue. And when you go off the shots, you're going to gain the weight back faster. And you could be losing weight and getting metabolically less functional while you're doing that because you're losing muscle. So if you are choosing or electing to use those tools, and I would agree those are effective tools to use in certain situations, and I have clients that use them, but we manage their protein intake to make sure they have enough protein. And we're also ensuring they're doing strength training. And those two are stimulus to counter the normal effect of losing muscle. So that will help you lose primarily fat mass. And you're going to lose inflammation. But with my Nutrition Made Simple program, the forest is managing nutrition to control and regulate insulin and inflammation. Those I call the snake eyes, insulin and inflammation. And the way you can do that, short and sweet, protein forward approach, protein and vegetables act like a filter in your stomach before you have starches or fruits or any refined carbohydrates. You want to definitely pay attention to how many refined carbohydrates you have, whether they're from potatoes, rice, or sugar. They're equally devastating. So filter, protein sequence, vegetables. That's just a quick little freebie that works really well. And then finally, medications and supplements. So Peter Attia calls them exogenous molecules. I do want to point out another resource, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, this protein forward approach and the sequencing strategy from this book, Glucose Revolution. So those are the 3 resources I mentioned there. Back up in a lot more detail if you like to read, or jump on Audible if you want to go deeper dive on that stuff. But the takeaways are protein forward, getting sufficient amount of protein. Protein is the signaling molecule of protein synthesis, muscle protein synthesis, or muscle building. And leucine specifically is an amino acid that's found in more concentrated in animal protein sources. So if you are vegan or vegetarian, you should consider supplementing with some plant-based proteins. But for my vegetarian clients that are willing, we supplement with some leucine specifically in their protein shakes to ensure they get that signaling molecule for protein synthesis. So those are some great resources there. Outside of for supplementation, and then for medications, you've probably know metformin, the GLP-1 inhibitors or mimetics, semaglutide, and tirzepatide, I already mentioned, do help with metabolic function. But anything or any method that you are able to lose weight will improve all-cause mortality. So it doesn't have to be a magic nutrition plan. Any type of nutrition plan that creates a caloric deficit is going to improve your short-term metabolic health. But at the end of the day, the nutrient quality for long-term health, if you're doing that day in, day out, you got to consider that as well. So just to wrap up, poor metabolic health is linked to poor brain function, lower energy, piss poor mood or mood dysregulation up and down, skin health, fertility. Do you know fertility now in males in the 20s and 30s is the lowest it's ever been? And I believe, and studies support this, it's a combination of metabolic dysregulation or not being metabolically healthy, as well as the processed foods that we are used to eating now. 65%, according to the FDA, based on our purchasing habits of Americans' calories are coming from processed and packaged foods now. That's just insane if you think about it. And so fertility is a big thing, and I see it all the time with my clients, and I do help many clients through that process, working with their doctors and medical teams, do things that can improve fertility. And then being metabolically unhealthy is going to increase your risk for all-cause mortality. So that's just kind of how not to die young, is basically improving your metabolic health. So that's a quick summary of metabolic health, what it is, and metabolic function. Thanks to Benjamin for commenting. I see your stuff, your comments on my feed here. But if you're tuning in now or later, just let me know if you watched live or the replay. If it's not Thursday night, you're watching the replay, and hopefully you got some value out of that. And also let me know in the comments some of the questions that you have, or the myths or the debates that you see online. Everything I talk about, I research a lot, and I practice what I preach, use these. And just a quick plug for something I'm working on. I contacted Levels today, and I'm hoping to create a relationship with them so I can get a discount access for people that want to at least experience a CGM. You will absolutely be blown away by how powerful an influence it can be to help drive your nutrition decisions. And it might change behaviors. So, for instance, a lot of people I would say 9 out of 10 people think, steel cut bowl of oatmeal, a bowl of steel cut oats would be a healthy breakfast. And when in fact, when you look at it through the lens of insulin and potentially inflammation, more insulin, it's really high glycemic. When I had steel cut oats, it raises my blood sugar over 140, 145. And anything over 120 is a spike. Donuts only raise your blood sugar to 135. So oatmeal, from that lens, is going to make you metabolically dysfunctional or increase the likelihood of that. So that's just another plug for why CGM is important. I'm hoping to bring that to anybody that's interested. If you can put CGM in the comments if you're interested, I'll put you on a list. And if I do negotiate that discount, I can send you that link or that promo code so you can get a CGM through Levels yourself. And they also have those metabolic labs that I talked about in the beginning, a $99 special on that. So that's some things I'm working on that end. And thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this is valuable, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Hopefully you find some value on that. And if you know somebody that could use this information, please share it. And I'm going to just taking ownership now. Definitely rusty on the videos, but I'm going to commit to doing more of these more frequently, tighten them up, get them better, and get you useful, actionable information. Book summaries. I'm reading a book called The Art of Impossible right now. I'm going to give you some takeaways from that. And then like some critical information from this book, as well as Forever Strong. And then that's that. So y'all have a great Thursday. Got a weekend coming up, 4th of July next week. And whenever you're watching this. So y'all take care. And we'll catch you next time on Coach's Corner. And if you're in the local area, you can go to triumphfitness.com, book a free consultation. It's 99% likely you're going to be with me. And we'll go over your situation specifically and the tools that we have access to. And I can guide you to get you metabolically healthy in 90 days, almost guaranteed. But you obviously have to do the work. You have to take ownership of your side. I can give you the tools and the direction and the guidance and the coaching, but you still got to do the actions to get the job done. So y'all take care. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time on Coach's Corner.